Welcome back to Tactical Pontoon. I'm James, and I will be your host as always, or until I'm replaced. You never know. It could happen. Maybe I'll find somebody who's a bit better behind the camera than I am. It's been a little bit of a busy week. If you followed me on Instagram, which is where all the new stuff happens, I'm not cool enough to have a Patreon yet. So nobody's more special than others unless you follow me on Instagram, which is where I update first. And I update more often. So look me up on Instagram, literally Tactical Pontoon, one word. There will be a link in the description so that you can just go there and click on it and it'll be there. So it's been a little bit of an interesting week here. Had a couple different things come in. One of them, which actually came in last week, let's make sure we're clear, is my slide for my Vickers clone on my RTF frame. This guy is a work of art. This is a beautiful gun. And I'm just giving you a peek at it. We are going to talk about it another day. I'm sorry about that. This episode is actually going to be on something that I don't often talk about, and that is the black rifle, the scary modern sporting rifle. Before we talk about that, which, as I said, is not something I talk about often. I love the AR-15 platform. I have had a couple of them. I will probably be building another one soon. But I'm a pistol guy. Most of what I do is in the Glock or, normally just Glock arena, Glock triggers. And speaking of Glock triggers, I've got one in here that it's a little bit, I wanted this trigger very badly when it first came out. It is quite an interesting looking trigger. I have one here with me. It is not my own. I'm actually working on improving it for somebody. And once I get it done, I'll get some video of it. But that would be the CMC. And as you can see, it's off the trigger bar. Work is going to be done on this guy. I want to like it. I really do. This is a cool looking trigger. This is a very cool looking trigger, at least to me. Just kind of neat. It's also kind of expensive at $170 for what really amounts to a shoe. The rest of it's factory. Literally, it's $170 for this shoe. And I felt a CMC AR trigger. That was quite a neat trigger. The spring literally fell out of it, so go figure. Felt the CMC trigger on an AR. Beautiful trigger. Looks just like that, only longer and skinnier. So when they came out with it, I was very excited about it. Then I saw some reviews and just... But I still want to play with one. When I got the opportunity to work on one, I jumped at it. And I got it in. I put it in one of my guns, and they weren't kidding. All of the reviews, I think Tactical Toolbox was one. I can't remember some of the others. There were some good ones out there, but I don't know if they've ever played with anything but a factory Glock trigger. Or perhaps they were paid. It can happen. Whatever. Hey, whatever. The break is crisp. It feels like a Glock trigger, only flat. The break is crisp. The reset is great. Blah blah blah. But I literally changed area codes from where it sits to where it breaks. I literally had to change area codes. it was that long of a distance. That has to do mainly with mechanics and the geometry of it. I get that, but dear God, could you not have figured that out before you released it? So I'm going to fix that. At least I'm going to try. I'm really going to give it my best to try and fix that thing, because it's a sexy trigger. It is a beautiful trigger. And when I fix it, and I will fix it, I will own one for one of my own Glocks, because it's beautiful. What did it break at? It breaks at 5.5 pounds, just like a factory Glock trigger. I put it in a factory Glock with all factory components. 5.5 pounds. It's nothing special. It's just a good-looking trigger. All right, CMC aside, let's talk ARs. The factory mil-spec AR trigger. It gets a lot of crap. People say it's got a mile of creep, it's 9 pounds. I've never seen that. Now, I am not an AR-15 guru. I've not had 30 ARs. I've not messed with an AR older than 5 years ago. Maybe they've changed, okay? But in any of the ones that I've had, they've had short, crisp triggers. Mil-spec. We're talking mil-spec. I recently picked up a JMT, James Madison Tactical Trigger, off of eBay for right at $80. They had a 20% off sale. I had to jump on it. It's a trigger that I had read about, and it really is a neat looking trigger. That is 17.4 pH, a high grade stainless steel drop-in trigger. I did some reading on TFB. They had a trigger shootout, and then one of the other articles down was on this JMT trigger, and they literally compared it to the Elftmann trigger. They had I think they call it the Dvork scan, and they laid these side by side. Now, the Elftmann, which is like a $250 trigger, broke sooner, but literally had the same pattern as this one. So they were raving about it. And I was excited. I thought, man, $100 for a drop-in trigger? An aluminum, it had the aluminum casing, this really nice-looking skeletonized trigger, and it was getting rave reviews. I'm thinking, I gotta have one. I mean, it's gonna change my world. It's literally gonna change my world. So I waited. And I waited. eBay had their, what was it? Time change, whatever, 20% off sale, anything you wanted. I ordered one, got it for $80 instead of $100. So that's what I did. And it came in. Now, let's talk about my previous experience with AR-15 triggers. And my best AR-15 trigger is this guy on my CBC upper and my beautiful horsey Anderson lower, okay? This guy is basically a mil-spec trigger coated in nickel Teflon, which with the lighting is a little bit hard to see, but it's kind of a silver colored trigger. It's a mil-spec. I got it from Tom's Tactical, which I do recommend them. Their shipping is quick and it is free. They're located right over in Texas. I've had nothing but good dealings with them. It's actually held in by my custom captured pins. So they're not anti-roll pins per se in any way, shape, or form. They're just captured. They've got E-clips on them. So anyways, nothing special there, really. This was my good trigger. Perhaps still is my good trigger. It's got a set of the JP enhanced springs, which really, it's not going to change the trigger pull much, if it did change it at all. But one thing I've always found about this trigger is it really is no slouch. That's not a bad trigger. That's not a lot of creep. I'm not really sure why people would be upset with this as their trigger. I wasn't upset with it. .7 ounces, or 3 pounds 7 ounces on the first pull. 3.7 ounces for the second pull. And 3.3 ounces. So really we're talking about a 3.5 pound trigger with, like I said, very, very minimal creep. Just a beautiful trigger. And that's a basic mil-spec trigger with nickel Teflon. Now, the trigger that I replaced was a phosphate-coated mil-spec trigger. Nothing special. And side by side, back to back, there was maybe 2 or 3 ounces of difference per each trigger pull. The travel was about the same. So really, I haven't had bad experience with mil-spec triggers. But hey, if for $100 or $80 in my case, I was going to get something that was going to change my world, would I not do that? Now this guy, beautiful trigger. Very little creep. I mean, literally about the same. You got your reset. Very similar. Very, very similar. And I'm kind of a trigger freak. I really am. And I want it to be like, this changes my world. This makes me excited about shooting my AR again. But it's not that much different. Let's start it back over. Let's figure out how much it pulls. 4 pounds. It is rated 3.5 to 4 pounds. Three pounds, 12 ounces. That's a little better. Three pounds, 15 ounces. So it's actually heavier than this one. It's got pretty much the same travel. It's a little crisper. It's just a little bit more there than my Tom's Tactical. We'll take a look at it. Let's pop this guy open real quick if we can. This guy comes like that. It's drop-in. It literally comes in an aluminum CNC housing. It's got some pins in there, or some set screws, to make sure that it's nice and tight in the housing. It also came with anti-roll pins. So the hammer is really nice. Also 17.4, a very high quality stainless, as I said before. So it's a beautiful trigger. That skeletonized trigger is just, it's something to look at. It's definitely beautiful, but it doesn't change my world. Now, if you have an old school AR, maybe some old Bushwhacker or Bushmaster that was from the early 80s and literally has a ton of play, and takes, the same trigger pull as, a Smith & Wesson SD40. See that, Scott? See that? 10 pounds? Then yes, I highly recommend it. But do I recommend it more than maybe spending the $60 to get the Tom's Tactical lower trigger group? Aesthetically, yes. Definitely aesthetically, yes. However, that nickel Teflon does not look that bad. I mean, that is not a bad looking trigger in and of itself. I mean, just if you ignore the fact that it's got that Strike Industries trigger guard instead of this flat basic one, really, it's not aesthetically that much more pleasing, at least to my eye. Now, if it was flat, if they had one of the flat trigger assemblies, I could understand it. But for $100, if you're putting a rifle together, it's not that bad. It's not going to change your world. Now, it will change your world if you've got an old style trigger, but for something that's probably been built in the last couple of years, I don't see it. So I still need to put some live rounds through it. I need to go shoot it. Maybe then it will change my perception of it. Maybe it will be literally the best trigger that I've ever felt. It will, just make me shoot like a sniper. I don't know. But I will get back with you. I will put more rounds through it. I will see if that changes the trigger pull. But as of right now, the JMT trigger is not something that I fully recommend. I want to like it. And I do like it. But I don't love it. I don't have to have it. I thought I had to have it. After reading the rave reviews on TFB and a few other places, I thought I had to have it. But I can't really recommend it at this point. So I will be updating this. We will look at it further. Check my Instagram. I had planned on doing some shooting with it today. Unfortunately, those plans fell through. Hoping to get it out in the next couple days, put some rounds through it, and then, I'll update it in probably another couple months. I'd like to get at least a good 500 rounds through it. That way I can really give a good assessment. But just unboxing it, getting it installed. Install is very simple. It's literally you pull your handle off, you pull your safety out, you pop your pins out, you drop it back in there, you put your safety in, you start putting your anti-roll pins. They only give you one Allen key that fits those anti-roll pins. You will need to find another, and it is kind of a funny size. So be prepared. Before you go to assemble, that was the one issue that I had. I had one that I was able to make work. I got it assembled, got the pins in, and then once you get the pins in, it'll have a little bit of wiggle. You'll put your set screws down. Just You don't tighten them. You snug them just a little bit so it takes the wobble out. Then you set your next set of set screws down. It gets set in place. Like I said, it's really simple. It's an easy one to install. If you're looking for just a reason to upgrade aesthetically and you don't want to spend $150, you don't want to spend $250, the JMT is an option. They're a neat company. At least the initial version, they're an aerospace company. It was kind of interesting when I found out that they were related to or were owned by the company that put out the Viper jet. That's a company I actually was really interested in working for at one time. I don't know that they're actually still in business. And with their current trigger, let's see if they'll stay in business. So James Madison Tactical Trigger, Saber Trigger. Is it a winner? Not as of yet. Not as of yet, but I will keep you up to date. If you have one of these triggers or you have any thoughts or questions about it, you want me to try something, leave that down below. Like, subscribe, maybe check out some of my other videos. Give me your suggestions and check me out on Instagram. And I will talk to you later. You see him back there? See him with the beard? That used to be, that's my Melbai. He's pretty cool. Anyways, actually, until recently, he was at the top of my YouTube channel, which has been changed once, and I don't have them out here, once I introduced my my new logo. I do have decals for that. Yet again, check my Instagram, and we can see about getting you one. That's it for today. We will be back next week, or maybe a little sooner, with my Glock. So excited about this guy. God, that's a beautiful gun. Anyways, JMT Tactical Trigger, there it is. So we'll get back with you next week. Talk to you later.